We are here today with Fernando. Fernando has an amazing story. I've worked with Fernando for quite a bit of time already. He's a great friend of mine. He Some of you may know a little bit of his story from the previous ones that I've posted. Fernando has lost 100 pounds. He lost it in his first year with
Yeah.
me. I think right on Thanksgiving was his 100 pound mark, and his story is very interesting because like majority of the dieting world, most people that lose a big amount of weight, they end up gaining it back. And Fernando went through a moment in his life or in this journey where he's lost 100 pounds. He happened to put on a bunch of weight back on, and now he is fully back again on track and has lost 100 pounds again, right? So what I'm really curious to hear is your story on what it was like to one first time lose to 100 pounds, right? That excitement, and then what it was like going through that process of falling back into this old you, where you started to gain this weight, and what those emotions and feelings were, and then obviously hearing back like how you fought back, and now we're back to what the 100 pounds down. So first, I would like for you to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. Tell us a little bit about what you do, and we'll go from there.
Well, my name is Fernando Martinez, right? People know me as Fernie. I I've been here with a vision already for 4 years already. I started back in 2019 when COVID first started. Um, I come from a very traditional Mexican family where all the meals include fried food. All the meals include, flour, tortillas, all these things, right? Growing up, I was never exposed to the proper way of eating. It was pretty much whatever was put in front of me, I would eat, right? I was not educated when it came to any of that. So as I grew older, um, it just got to the point where I would let myself go in a sense that if I craved something, I would just go get it. No matter what time during the day, no matter what activity I was doing, my world always revolved around food and around cravings. Um, I was 360 pounds before I started with Envision here, and as you remember, right? I was already on a I was in the process of getting the gastric bypass done. And what led me to get to that point was that I had already tried so many crash diets prior to that. I remember I went with a certain doctor, here in town, where I had to meet up with him once a week to get an injection. My meals, literally, he gave me a little bowl, and all he said was, "Okay, whatever fits in this bowl, that's all you're eating. If you're hungry after that, you can't have anything else," right? I wasn't able to have snacks. It was 3 meals a day, and it worked. I lost a lot of the weight. But the minute that I decided to take a little break, I gained everything back. And I actually gained more than what I had. That led me to get to the 360-pound mark. I was frustrated. I was not comfortable in my own skin because that stopped me from being able to enjoy a lot of the things that life has to offer, right? One being, roller coasters, amusement parks, right? I had an experience where I went to an amusement park. I tried to get on the ride, and it didn't close in front of everybody, right? Everybody was staring at the fact that the guy was struggling trying to close the little buckle, and it wasn't closing, and it was because of how big it was. At that moment, I said, I'm never, ever again going to an amusement park. Um, I would go and take my nieces and nephews to go hang out with friends, but me going to an amusement park meant I'm going for the food because I couldn't enjoy everything else, right? So it got to the point where I went up to a 5X, 6X in my clothing. I did not have the luxury to go into any store and say, "Oh, I like this shirt," or "I like these jeans," or because they wouldn't have it my size. The biggest size that a regular store carries would be 2X. Anything after that, you don't find it. So I started shopping online at Big and Tall because we don't have one in town. I also would travel outside of Watsonville to find locations that manufactured clothing for bigger people, and it was I wasn't happy with myself. My self-esteem was very low. I was very self-conscious. I surrounded myself with a group of people that made me feel like there was nothing wrong with me. That if I wanted to eat and it made me feel happy, then eat because it makes you feel happy. I'm not saying they introduced me to alcohol, but it was a big encouragement for that. I started drinking a lot and going to bars, going to clubs, things like that, where I would say at least 3 to 4 days out of the week, I would be either at a brewery or at a bar. And it was my routine. If I had nothing to do, I would just call someone up and say, "Hey, what are you doing? Let's go have a drink." And that one drink would turn into a whole night of drinking. And it was a constant thing. So I wasn't able to break the cycle, not because I couldn't do it myself. I was just too comfortable. And it got to the point where I had accepted that. And in my head, I kept telling myself, well, this is who I am. This is who I'm always going to be. Like, might as well just live life to its fullest, right? I started the process to get the gastric bypass done because a couple of years, I want to say back in 2019, because I had rock bottom. I didn't want to be like that anymore. I wanted to live. I wanted to feel comfortable within my skin, and my requirement was about 6 appointments with a therapist, 6 appointments with a doctor, and a psychologist and a dietitian. I've only made it to 4 appointments because on my fourth appointment, as soon as I walked out of there, I jumped on social media and I bumped into your page, Easy Preps, right? And I looked at the page and I saw how many people you've helped, how many people you impacted, and I said, at that point, I needed somebody to hold my hand. I needed somebody to walk me through that journey and through that road because I was lost. I didn't know how to do it on my own. So that's when I messaged you, and that's when we had our first meeting at Easy Preps, and that's why we're here now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so it sounds like you found yourself in a group of people where there's not a lot of judgment, obviously, right? Like there's no judgment, but I think that the actions that were happening then were not the best either, right? So there was a no judgment zone where you can eat, you can drink all you want, but obviously that didn't lead to something healthy, right? It obviously led all of you, I'm sure, to some disappointments or some, finding yourself having to shop all of a sudden at Big and Tall. So it sounds like you hit rock bottom. You find us, and you found me. This was before Envision was built, right?
Yeah.
Like this was when I used to coach by myself, and we had Easy Preps. And then, how did you start losing the weight? Because I remember we met at Envision, or no, at Easy Preps here at the Discount Mall, and then I remember we couldn't do much at the beginning because you were overweight. I couldn't really make you run. I couldn't really make you lift yet. There wasn't much that you could do. You couldn't really bend much. So how did we start that process with you? How did you lose your first? I think the first 40 pounds, I think were pretty simple. Mm-hmm. What was that like?
So when we first started, we focused mainly on, changing my eating habits, right? I remember you didn't really focus so much on how many meals a day I was having. It was more making the changes where substituting, for example, bread for veggies and things like that, right? So just it got, to get comfortable with the food and gain more knowledge on the food and how to start eating, properly. I didn't do any exercise the first, I want to say, 2 to 3 months. All I did was I would go on walks.
Yeah.
I started moving more, right? I started doing things around the house. For example, helping my dad move things around, because, you know, concrete, bricks, stuff like that. He works for construction, so there's a lot of things that he's constantly doing at home. So I would involve myself in that physical labor. I would go on hikes. I would go, like I said, walks to the beach, things like that. I didn't step a foot into the gym till maybe I want to say 4 months afterwards. But within those first few months, well, actually the first 2 weeks, I had lost about 40 pounds. And it was all because I cut everything out. I stopped drinking. I focused on having a gallon of water a day, having the meals that I was, given, and like I said, just walking. That's literally all I did. It helped me a lot. Well, it was a blessing in disguise because this all happened when COVID first started too. I remember that a week after we had met, COVID had started. So I feel like for me that was a blessing in disguise because I didn't have the opportunity to fall off, or I didn't have the opportunity to say, oh, well, let me just go have a cheat meal right here
Right.
and there, right? Um, so it was just me finding ways of keeping myself busy and myself active, that did the job. I taking my dog out for a walk, just simple little things like that. I was surprised that by just simply doing a walk at least an hour to a day
Yeah.
was helping me to lose the weight.
Yeah.
In my head, I was under the impression that you had to physically, be in a gym and lift weights and lift heavy in
Yeah.
order for you to start losing weight, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I remember you went through a very unique weight loss experience, and particularly in how I normally coach. One, right, because of COVID, that happened. And then around this time, too, we had just moved to a beach house. So we were right at Rio Del Mar. And you and I obviously built a really good relationship, because I remember looking at your case, and I was like, man, how am I gonna drop this guy? Like he can't even pick up a dumbbell. He can't bend. He can't do much, right? And I think right around this time, I had just started like some 90-day challenge where it was like all outdoor activities. Like we were trying to find ways to stay busy, during COVID, and the ocean was one of those where they didn't have a lot of restrictions yet. And so I remember we started spending some time together on a daily basis, and we picked one activity per day,
Mm-hmm.
and we went into like playing tennis, we did surfing, we did bodyboarding. What did we do? We did, was it chopping wood?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we try to find an activity outside, riding bikes, fishing. We did all these outdoor activities, and that was a lot of our training that really happened. And what we were really doing, it was just moving more. We eliminated alcohol, which was a big thing for you, right? So when you take away all those calories from alcohol, let's just say 8 IPAs, let's just say 1,600 calories are
Mm-hmm.
removed, and then all of a sudden you're just moving more, right? Being out in the water for a couple hours and treading water. Well, you're gonna drop some weight, and I think that that was what was very different, I think, from any of the other weight losses that I've given people, from that was different from yours. And honestly, if I could give it to every single person and spend that amount of time with a person, I would, because I think that is what really comes down to. It's the lifestyle outside of the gym, and we always talk about the other 23 hours that you spend outside of the gym, right? So many people focus on going to the gym and working as hard as they can, but in reality, if they were to focus on the other 23, right, moving more, walking more, taking your dog out for a walk, like very basic things that you can do in 10, 15-minute increments, and you can compound it over time. Like realistically, that's what's going to give you the weight loss. And that's exactly what we did with you. I think you dropped like the first 50, and then we really started picking up the weights, and we taught you how to squat. We taught you how to bench press and how to do all the major movements. But most of your weight loss happened without it.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about your story is that I remember you dropped the 100 pounds on Thanksgiving, and that was our marker, right? We were trying to drop 100, and I think you were like 5 pounds under that day. And Ferdy was very funny because he was like, I'm not gonna eat dinner tonight if I don't drop the 100 pounds. And I'm like, shit, like what am I supposed to do? So I was like, all right. I treat him like at this point, like he had made so much success, but he was stuck on this 100-pound goal, and I had to give it to him that day. And I remember I had you wear like all these sweaters. I remember I found the video the other day.
Came layered up.
That I had him do circles around Envision. By this time, Envision, we had just opened Envision.
Yeah. You're still painting, actually.
Yeah, we were still painting. We're like 2 weeks in, and you're doing circles around Envision. And
turned up the heater.
Yeah, I turned up the heater. I sent you home. You were like, you lost like 2 pounds that morning session.
Yeah.
It was like it was like you were getting ready for a boxing match.
Went home, got on that treadmill for an hour. No water.
And it was still like another pound to lose or something like that. And then we went out on the water for another
a couple
2
hours.
So you did like 4 to 5 hours of exercise that morning.
Yeah.
So that you could hit that goal and lose the weight. What was that feeling like though when you got on the scale and you finally realized, because I think aside from like the 100 pounds lost, like what was that feeling that you had when you did it? And because you stuck to it. Like I was very surprised how you were able to do this in a short period of time. Like what was that feeling like for you?
It was surreal, especially because I've always doubted myself. I used to live with the mentality of finding willpower. And throughout my journey, one thing that I learned is you won't find it. You have to make it. You know what I mean? You got the tools that you need for you to just turn everything around. And I had never done anything in my life. I will say this is the first time that I can honestly say that I had accomplished something for the first time, right? So it was a very emotional moment. Because I feel like what a lot of people do is that when they hear 100 pounds, they automatically think of the number. So that's impossible to reach, right? They also think about, well, how long is this going to take, right? Is it going to take me a month, 2 months, 3 months? A lot of people expect results quick. That's another thing, right? I had to tell myself, just enjoy the journey. A day at a time. I'm in no rush. So then why do I expect the results to be here right then and there, right? I will say that I was mainly focused on, like I said, the activities we would do outside of work. Of course, staying consistent with my meals and everything. And once I started getting into the gym and once we started working out, doing the one-on-one coachings and everything, I feel like that just kind of somewhat sped the process, but it also made me gain more confidence. It gave me more strength for me to say, oh, really? Like all this time I waited till I was in my 30s for me to flip the switch when I could have done this, back then. If you were to ask me right now, I probably wish I would have made the choice to make this change way back so I wouldn't be in the shoes that I'm in right now. But at the same time, I'm taking it as a lesson learned. I can't fix the past. It's now about moving forward, right? And it's about what I'm doing right now to just keep moving forward. To me, it's not what I'm doing right now. I'm not on a meal plan. I'm not on a diet. Why? It's a lifestyle. And throughout the lifestyle, like I said, I've learned to incorporate activities and things like that. I mean, I just went to Vegas, right? My number one concern, to be honest, was, oh, what am I going to eat? I'm going to be in Vegas. Uh, should I follow my diet? Should I, my meal plan or
Mm.
whatever? Should I not? And I caught myself putting too much thought and energy into what am I going to eat as opposed to looking at the bigger picture, which is I'm going to Vegas. I'm going to have a good time. I want to do all these things. I get to Vegas and I had the time of my life. I everywhere I went, I had options and I didn't have any cravings, and little by little I've been learning to adapt to this new lifestyle, and I've been learning to find, I've been learning on how to find options that are not going to affect me in a certain way. And it's been a good, for me it's been a really good experience.
So it sounds like now that you have the education, you're able to make better decisions when you're out, right? Like you're able to identify what a plate should look like for
Mm-hmm.
you, which gives you power and gives you control over being able to be out in social gatherings, and then obviously not turn on the panic button, which I think a lot of people do,
Mm-hmm.
right? They go out, they two things happen when people go out. Thing number one, somebody freaks out before it happens. And so then they immediately shut themselves off. They're like, nope, not having anything. So they'll be the person with the water sitting
Mm-hmm.
while everybody's eating. Obviously, that makes everybody slightly uncomfortable. And it makes the person who is sitting at that, who is doing that, obviously very uncomfortable, right? Like the cravings probably kick in. And obviously, because of willpower, you choose not to do it. Second person will go ahead and lose control, right? They're like, they know they had to watch what they're eating. They lose control, and then they get the guilt trip after, and then it's like the whole world's over for them, right? They have a bad experience because now they feel guilty. Sometimes it's like, f that,
Correct.
let's just go all out then. And then they come back, and then they try to, cut everything out the next day because they feel so guilty about what they did over the weekend. Now they're panicking, and then it just becomes this complete mess. Sounds like for you though, because you spent enough time doing this, you have the knowledge now to know, like, hey, I can be more cautious about what I'm having, or two, if it does get slightly out of control, it's not the end of the world. I need to go back to my regular
Mm-hmm.
habits, and so on and so on. Um, is that right?
No, no, for sure, 100%. I went through that a lot too throughout the journey. I'm not gonna lie, where I would go out somewhere and maybe I'll have a taco or two, and then the next day is like, oh man, I shouldn't have had that. But one of the things that I learned, being a part of Envision, that helped me to start seeing things in a different way is that carbs are not your enemy. If I cheated with those two tacos, does not mean I'm going to starve myself the next day. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do a cleanse the next day or just stay with nothing but protein shakes, right? Just continue eating the way I've been eating before, right? And that's something that I had to force myself to like learn and accept, because it was I would guilt trip myself. And now it's a little different because I feel that since I was able to change that mentality, I'm not saying it's something that I do every day, right, all the time, but if it were to happen, I'm not going to beat myself up for that, because at the end of the day, let's say a month, a year of me being on this journey, it's not going to go to waste just because of one meal that I just had.
Mm-hmm.
Like with that one meal, it's not going to make me gain 100 pounds
Right.
back because I just had it, right? I feel like a lot of people that have been in my situation, in my shoes, and are going through the same steps have not been really exposed to what it's like to expose and educated when it comes to food, right? So for me, the education and the support that Envision has, offered to me, it's what's been helping me live life without regret and without judgment. Number one, right? And that's why I'm here.
That's awesome, Fernie. Let's talk. You talked a little bit about the confidence that the weight loss gave you the first time around. I remember talking to you a little bit about your professional side. I think if you're part of Envision, one of the things you'll find out over time as you start losing weight, obviously you gain some confidence, and we like to tap a little bit more into your personal life as well. Aside from weight loss, I think every single human being that is on Earth that is trying to lose weight, they're trying to lose weight one because they want to look better, but also because they want to feel better. They want more, right? And one of the things that you learn with this journey as you start exercising more, as you start eating better, is that your mindset starts to shift and it starts to change. And we talked a little bit about your professional side too, how you wanted to pursue higher positions in your career, and obviously you've been working for a company that has a lot of levels that you can grow into. And I remember being in the garage and talking to you a little bit about what you wanted to do, and where you wanted to grow into. And obviously, a lot of that happened for you. Tell us a little bit more about the confidence that you gained through this process and how you were able to achieve these new titles for yourself.
So for me, like I said, a lot of advice and guidance came directly from the conversations that we had before, right? Me being in the state that I was in back then didn't feel like I was mentally and physically there for me to take a step forward. I always I would always think of excuses of like, maybe I'm not ready because of this. Maybe I'm not ready because of that. I feel like my lack of confidence and um, it all tied up to my old habits because of the circle that I would surround myself with, right, all the time, where everybody was so comfortable staying in the same place that I would tell myself, oh, I'm okay. It's fine. I have a roof over my head. Like, I don't need to go any further. But that wasn't me. I've always had, ever since I joined Envision and all that, I feel like in the physical aspect, the fact that I lost all the weight and all that, I was able to experience what it's like to have actual energy from healthy food. And therefore me having the energy and the drive of wanting to do something made me want to focus on doing more physical things. Doing more physical things allowed me to stay on my feet at work and wanting to go above and beyond to doing extra tasks, because at that point I I made the time. I have the energy for it, right? Where prior to that, I remember at work I had to receive inventory at some point, and it was dragging for me because we're talking about lifting boxes. We're talking about taking boxes across the room, and like all these negative thoughts, all these negative feelings, I would start sweating right away, right? So I felt sloppy. And for me, I feel like all these little changes that I made physically, right, encouraged somehow for me to, and all the things that I learned, from you and throughout my journey started being an influence on my mindset and saying, no, I can do this. And I had to stop looking at things in a negative perspective, right? It got to the point where I was, okay, well, maybe I don't know how to do this, but that doesn't mean I can't learn it, right? So then it was, okay, well, let's take the time, let's learn it, let's figure it out. Next thing you know, I'm already doing it, right? And it's just, I I've learned how to train physically in the gym, but I've also been getting the perfect tools and how to train myself mentally to turn things around for positive things to come my way. And therefore, I was able to change and control my confidence. That made me feel like, you know what? No, if you can do it, then I can do it better. And I did it. And I moved up within my company. I'm in the process of moving up now. So hopefully, this will be my second promotion within the year. But great, thanks.
That's awesome. And obviously, this new career or new level obviously came with a lot of stress.
Oh yeah.
And so let's talk about um, the little bump you went through in this phase of a new career, because I think I remember talking to you, and you obviously you were very excited about getting your promotion and managing multiple stores, right? But what is one thing that you started to realize as this happened, right? Obviously stress went up. What happened around this time? And mind you, like Ferdy has lost 100 pounds around this time. Very successful. He's made it. He's stoked.
Yeah.
Gets a new promotion, and then what happens?
So then I get a lot of more things thrown my way, more responsibilities, things that I'm experiencing for the first time, and just having to figure out, like I said, dealing with 2 stores at the same time, 14 employees, things like that. I started stress eating. I started stress eating where prepping my meals wasn't an option anymore. Why? Because first of all, I commute. It's an hour away from here, right? I get to work, and it was easier for me to pick up at Starbucks and pick up a croissant than for me to come home after work mentally exhausted, drained, tired, and then having to prep my meals to take it to work the next day, right? There was times where I was like, no, I need to get back into it. I need to get back into it. And I would prep my meals, but somehow, because of the level of stress that I had, I started thinking back like I used to think before, where I wanted to find comfort in the food. Therefore, my meal was not looking good to me anymore. I was not craving it. I would see my salad and, with my steak, and sadly, I would push that away and DoorDash a burger. And it started little by little to where eventually I went back to my old habits. I was so stressed that I was driving home, and I would always pass by the brewery and pick up a 4-pack. And sometimes I would catch myself doing that 3-4 times a week. And on my days off, all I wanted to do was be at the brewery. It got to the point where I would go to the brewery and they'd be like, oh, the usual? Like they already know which one I wanted. And I started hopping around breweries. When I first started my journey with you, I did cut a lot of people out of my life because they were not bringing anything beneficial. They were holding me back, if anything. They were not supportive of my journey, and they would not understand that I choose to drink water while you're drinking a beer. People started actually leaving me out of events and including me into things because I'm the weird one, because I don't want to eat. So therefore, since I'm not eating or drinking, you don't want to spend time with me, right? So all the people that walked out of my life, or that I cut out of my life, I started reaching back. And then eventually they all came back, and we went back to square one. If you were to ask me as soon, and I did, it clicked one day that I was driving, to work, how all these people that were there prior to me, embarking on this journey, they're in the same place. They're in the same situation. Nothing has changed. We're talking about on their days off, it's all about partying and getting drunk. That's it. And then there's other people that were like, okay, well, maybe it's time for us to be healthy too. And their healthy mindset was, oh, it's okay for you to be healthy Monday through Friday. On the weekend, knock yourself out. It's fine. Get drunk. Have whatever you weren't able to go. But as soon as Monday comes, jump back on it, right? I gained 65 pounds again from all that. I went down from being a size large in my clothing to being 2X, sometimes 3X, depending on, the fabric, the material. And it was a wake-up call. I said, what the hell am I doing? Like, I busted my ass off the first few years getting to where I wanted to be, which, by the way, I still hadn't achieved my goal, because my goal is still to go further than where I'm at the moment and where I was at, right? And I had a tough conversation with myself because half of me was like, well, you already gained the weight. Like, there's no going back. Like, it's going to be really tough. But the other side of me was like, you've done it before. What the heck are you thinking? Like, look, I had to start buying new clothes again because my old clothes was not fitting. So I said, no, I can't do that. I got rid of all my 2, 3, 4, 5X, shirts because I was already wearing large. And now I'm here buying them back again, right? So that was a wake up call for me. And I said, no, I can't do this. And jump back on board. I will not say that it was not as hard as it was the first time. For me, I feel like this time what's made it easier is the fact that I've already done it before. I'm already knowledgeable enough to know how everything works. It's just a matter of doing it. Get off my butt and do it. Like, how bad do you want it? Do the work, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, well, we'll get back on it. I got on the scale the first day and I was like, okay, 65 pounds gained. Let's just get back to to my old lifestyle, right? Meaning my current lifestyle. And I did. I was taking it a day at a time, just focusing on, as silly as it sounds, I would make it through the first day, and then I would mark it down on a calendar. Cool, I made it through the first day. The second day, third day. Once I've made it through the first 2 weeks, that I haven't even touched the calendar. It's been all about making sure that I'm fully restocked on my meals, going on hikes. I've been taking my meals to work. I have a fridge at work where I actually leave certain stuff to make my meals in case I run out of food, whatever it is. I have it there as a backup. And just learning how to be more disciplined in that aspect. But like I said, it only took 2 weeks. And now I'm at the point, like right now, I've been traveling, I've been doing all these things. And yeah, my concerns were, is this going to get in the way from me enjoying my vacation? But then it's like, okay, well, you need to stop thinking like that because, you're going to end up falling off again. But I've been doing great. Like I said, I still have a long way to go. This is not a temporary thing. It's a lifestyle. And there's goals that I want to achieve physically that I'm working on. And there's also a lot of things that I want to achieve, mentally and professionally. And I think I'm just taking it a day at a time. I'm not overthinking it. I'm not saying, oh my God, where am I going to be in 2 months? Where am I going to be in a year from now? Okay, well, when I get there, what? Does that mean I'm stopping? Mm-hmm. Like, that's one thing that people need to wrap their minds around, that it's a lifestyle. Like, this is a forever. Yeah, you can make accommodations to still be able to enjoy a little bit of what life has to offer, right? You can, when you go out, or if you're going on vacation, whatever it is. But figuring out how to do it with moderation and not make it be a permanent thing. And that's the thing that I've been learning this second time. I'm not going to say that it's been easy, forcing myself to think differently, but it's been a process, but I'm not complaining because I have the support.
Yeah. Do you feel like once you reach that goal, obviously you became complacent, right? Do you feel like goals are important for you moving forward?
Yes, definitely. The reason they're important for me is because it gives me something to look forward to. So, for example, let's say I give myself for the next month or two to lose 10 pounds. Cool. My main focus is to get to that. Once I get there, it's like, all right, cool. We beat this one. Let's go to the next level. Think of it as a video game, right? Pass the level, you move on to the next one. But it's just little things that I set for myself to make this journey more, not so much challenging, but more enjoyable, right? And like I said, it's never going to have an ending, because at the end of the day, what I want to do is, I want to look good, but mainly I want to be healthy. That's my thing, right? I do have family that suffers from diabetes. I was a pre-diabetic, and all that went away the minute I started losing weight and all that. And I'm glad that I never made it to where I actually had it, because it would have been a different story right now. But yeah.
You talked a little bit about um, using food to make you feel better.
Hmm.
Where did you learn that behavior, or when did you learn that behavior?
I There's different types of depression, and I can tell you that I've always been a happy person. But now I realize that I was depressed because I wasn't happy with how I used to look. I wasn't comfortable in my skin. I didn't have a love life. I didn't even bother putting myself out there, because in my head was all I had in my head was, who's gonna look at you, who's gonna want to date that. I would insult myself a lot. I'm not gonna lie. And when I would find myself in situations like that where I was just sad and I had nothing to do and I was just in my head, I would turn to food. I would go to Panda Express. I would order half, I would order a lot. I would eat a lot, and I'm not ashamed of it. We're talking about, if I were to go to Panda Express, freaking 2 plates in one sitting, right? There was times where I would eat at home, and it's something just turned my day around, and I got back into my head. Even though I'm full because I just finished eating, I would reach out to people and, hey, let's go eat. I would go to restaurants and I would order my food feeling full still from what I had just eaten. And I would force myself to eat what was in front of me just because I wanted to make myself feel better, right? Um, I would get in my head a lot just because I felt like there is no way out. There's no other exit. Like, this is the life that I meant to live. I see other people that are, bodybuilders that are, more healthier than I am, than I was, and all that. And that to me never seemed achievable. Um, why? Because my mentality was that I needed results fast.
How did the food make you feel after?
Sick. There's a couple of times where I threw up. It would make at the while I was eating it, happiest person in the world at the moment. The minute I was done eating it, I felt disgusted. I would throw up sometimes. I would start guilt tripping myself. Like, why did you do it? What are you doing? That sometimes I would even take myself out for walks right after that. And, or I would just call someone and be like, hey, I'm in my head. Let's get out. Let's go do something. And then we would go drink.
Yeah.
And then it turned into a whole night of drinking, and we ended up back at a restaurant.
It's interesting now that you described that. I had this thought because I've never experienced the food side of the food addiction side, right? I've never, not once in my life have I looked to food as comfort, right? But I can remember in a different form, like alcohol. It's very similar. As you were talking about it, it was going through my head, and it brought this back to me when you were saying about being happy, because I thought about this the other day, actually yesterday. I was looking back at old pictures of myself in college, and I remember after I've threw my career away, I started heavily drinking on like a daily basis, and to me that was fun back then, right? Like it was a lot of fun. I never really saw it as a bad thing, but I did notice that um, it would always happen. Like at the end of the day, I didn't want to be alone, and I always wanted to be surrounded by people, and so I would always drink for that reason. And when you talk about when you're drinking or when you're eating, you're the happiest person,
Mm-hmm.
and it obviously always led to over drinking, blacking out, stuff like that.
Yeah.
at the beginning it was obviously throwing up. After a while, I built a tolerance, wouldn't even throw up. But I remember the next day, same experience, right? I would wake up and just you feel like shit. You didn't you you feel guilty. I'm like, oh my god, I need to stop. I remember a lot of us talking about it, like, hey, we need to stop. But then that feeling would come back again at the end of the day, and you're like, all right, here we go again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's so interesting how a lot of these addictions they come in many different forms, but it sounds like when we're in them, it's we don't see anything wrong with them. Like we're being happy, quote unquote. We are living,
Mm-hmm.
right? How a lot of people describe it. I remember looking back at myself and just, you know, obviously, I was in deep depression, but I would block that off and just look at myself like I'm having fun. I'm a partier. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
college student. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But now looking back and after so many years of that happening and going through a lot of healing, we can say, um, obviously now I laugh about it. I'm like, man, I was in a dark place back then. But I'm curious, like, how do you, obviously, because stress is going to continue to happen. Life is going to happen, right? And it sounds like when stress for you, for example, happens or when something falls out of place, we tend to act differently. Is there something that you have found for yourself of how you're going to deal with these type of situations versus like going back to the old you, going back to eating, going back to drinking, going back to reaching out to those people, right? Have you found something that you plan to use in the future for when you find yourself in these situations again?
So my comfort at the moment, right? Like I said, I cut all those people out, and I actually been involving myself and talking to a lot of people that are in a higher level at work, and just having conversations with them on the daily, right? Surrounding myself with people that are successful and people that can actually be teaching me things that are going to benefit me in the long run. Um, I've been listening to podcasts on the way to work. I've also been listening to a lot of motivational speeches. I've somehow started getting into like the whole affirmations thing too, which at first I was like, does this work? Does that work? Right. But to me, I feel like it's been helping me.
Good.
Right. And just whenever I've been finding myself in situations like that, I always go to the beach. I'm always out there. Just walking there by myself or walking with my dog. I take my headphones, listen to music, let it out if I have to, or just simply call somebody and have a simple conversation. Like to me, I found comfort in all those things. And I got back into reading books. I registered to start school online already through my work. They're going to pay for it, right? I want to get into business and marketing and, to move up and higher within the company. So whenever I find myself in a situation that there's no way out, that I'm stressed out, I'm getting anxiety, whatever it is, I don't let it consume me. I don't let it take over me because I'm not gonna lie that the thoughts get in there.
Mm-hmm.
The thoughts get in there where it just happened last week, right? I was stressed out with one of my reps at work. And I told my coworker, I'm like, I cannot wait to get home. Oh, I want to open a bottle of tequila and just, take a couple shots. But instead of doing that, I was driving through 17 and ended up at the cliffs by the boardwalk, watching the sunset and watching the surfers do their thing. And I met this lady that was actually sitting by the surfer statue. And I learned that she was a retired nurse, and we're just talking about her career and stuff like that, which I'm happy that I was able to talk to her. But it kind of made me question if I really wanted to take that direction that I'm taking with my career, because just by simply having a conversation with her, she was like, hey, you're the type of people we need at the hospital. We need more nurses like that. You're very welcoming, your energy, just being here talking to you made me feel different. And it clicked in my head. She wasn't the first person to ever say that to me, right? So now I'm like, what can I do with it? How can I use this to my advantage? I have yet to figure that out.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm just involving
You
myself into things that I've never involved myself with before.
you are doing it right now. You are. You're speaking about your experiences, and I wrote about this today, um, because same thing myself. I find myself in those mindsets, right? Like where sometimes the thoughts get into your head and they start playing games in your head. You start doubting yourself. You start, am I even the right person to do this? Stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, and one of the things that I struggle with is getting my story out. Like I'll do well for a few days or a few weeks, and then it kind of falls off, and life catches up to me. Or sometimes I guess things don't happen as fast as you want them to, so you start doubting yourself. Like, are people even listening? You
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, but it was really cool the last few days that I've put some stuff out again. Uh, the amount of feedback that you get, and people send you these messages and tell you, oh my God, thank you, I needed to listen to that. And sometimes I feel like I believe that a lot of what I say doesn't make sense to a lot of people, or maybe they're not catching it right. But I think what I'm starting to find is that more people like to keep to themselves, and not everybody's going to go out and reach out, but a lot of people will take in what you say,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually helps them. And I think that's one thing that conversation does
Mm-hmm.
is, and I think you figured it out yourself, right? In stressful situations, you go and you speak to someone higher, and all of a sudden you realize, like, oh, this person goes through the same things, right? We all go through very similar things. We all just deal with them very different. Some medicate, right, with food, with drugs, with alcohol. Others medicate through having conversations and learning about other people's experiences. Um, and I think when you say that you don't really understand what to do with it, is I think you're doing it right now. You just don't realize it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think coming on a microphone and speaking about your experiences and what you've learned, is going to allow a lot of people to make changes, and you're going to impact a lot of people without you realizing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the messages will eventually start to flow, and I think we experienced that last time.
We did.
You did it. We spoke last time and we talked a little bit about it, and it's so crazy to think about how many people you can inspire with your voice and with your story. And I think a big step for you in the next years to come is to realize how you want to impact the world, right? And what is that purpose for yourself? And I've discovered that in the last few years, that by helping others and by setting myself up to live a life where I serve others, it makes me want to wake up. It makes me feel good, right? Listening to your story earlier, right, it makes me teary because I can't even imagine being in your shoes and going through all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But same thing on my end. Like, so many people listen to my story and they can't even imagine what it would be like to pull yourself out by yourself, um, you know, across country and doing those things. So I think you're doing it right now. You're living you're finding what your purpose is, and I agree with that person 100%. I think that you are a very caring person, and we've talked a lot about this in our personal conversations. How you want to serve others. You're a server,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that if you continue to just find ways to serve other people, in positive ways, I mean, I think you can do whatever you want. Your career could be anything, because you will always find a way to serve a person. And probably one of the reasons why you're such a great leader where you are, and why so many people listen to you. So that's my 2 cents for you.
Oh, thank you. No, and you're right. Like I said, it's just right now I'm in I'm in a state where I have options. It's
Mhm.
weird, and I've never felt like that. And I'm just going with the flow, and I'm testing certain waters, and I'm exposing myself to new things, and I had to reevaluate my life once more, right? And like I've had in a previous conversation with you, I cut a lot of people out of my life, people that were holding me back, people that were not there to bring anything, any positivity or anything that was going to benefit. As selfish as that sounds, like everybody learns a little bit from everyone, but if you're not doing anything that's going to benefit me in the long run and you're just going to hold me back, then I don't need you in my life, right? And just like I said, I was not the type of person, and that's one thing that I always admired about you, that no matter where you go, you can meet a stranger and have a conversation with them. Oh, that's always been my biggest thing. And lately, I've been challenging myself to do so. I'm not going to lie, I'm not 100% comfortable with it because it takes me a good 15 minutes for me to fully convince myself that I want to say, hey, how's it going? Introduce myself. But the couple of times that I've done it, I've had really good conversations with people. So just changing little things little by little. And it's now these days is about who you know, right? You never know who, like you said, I didn't know that woman that I talked to, right? That day, that she could have been, I don't know, the president of some company just because we had a conversation. Then I'm already opening some doors for myself right there, right? And I'm just, enjoying the whole process. For me, it's a new experience. Like I've never had this mentality before. I was very not necessarily closed-minded, but I was just like, this is my circle, and I'm sticking within my circle, and no one else can come into my circle, but I'm gonna keep my circle, right? And now I feel like I got rid of that circle, and it's like, oh crap, where do I go now? Like I have all these options, so right now I'm exploring.
That's good. Exploring is good. Sounds like you're going through another transformation. Not well physically. That's still continuing, but you're finding new relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to remind yourself that it's. I mean, you could be surrounded by so many people, but you could be so lonely,
Mm-hmm.
right? I was I was I'm always fascinated by. I like to look back a lot. I like to look at people. I like to study people and their behaviors, right? I always remember the most popular high school students. And in our town in particular, uh, like popular at 15 is like the thug,
The jocks.
the jocks, like, um, and it always fascinates me how that the most popular student as an adult is not the most popular student anymore. They usually end up being very lonely. They usually end up with some type of entry level job, and I'm always curious to see how that affected them, or how that affects a younger person, right? That amount of attention and that amount of fame, how it affects them in the future. Because I can think of all of them, and I've run into them multiple times in town, and it's super interesting, right? And so back to that comment is like, you can have so many people around, but yet you could still be so lonely, and you can be very selective with who you speak to and who you'll spend your time with, and you can be very, very happy.
Mm-hmm.
So quality over quantity, I
For
think, is
sure.
important. Um, but yeah, and once again, one of the things that I've learned with being around very successful people, and one of the things that I've learned from being on the other side of like general population, I would say, is that very successful people never really hold anything against you. Like, and when we talk about friendships, um, some of my closest friends, and they're very successful, and there's times where we don't speak for a few months or a few years, right? There's a few college friends that are still good friends of mine, and they'll be at my wedding. And I haven't spoken to them in a long time, and I spoke to them for the first time in like, man, it's been probably 10 years. But they will never hold anything against you, right? If you're busy, you're busy. I get it. I'm living the same life as well. But one of the things that I've found with this other group of people is that you don't call them for a week. Oh my God, they're in your ear. You don't talk to me anymore, right? They're so caught up in the drama. Um, and it's the complete opposite on the other side. It's like, hey, like, and you and I have this conversation. You and I have this relationship too. There's times where I don't hear from you for about a month or two, and usually I'll shoot you a text or you shoot me a text, and it's always like we never left, right? Like we just pick up the conversation from where we left off last time, and so that is one of the observations too that I always find. Have you experienced the same?
Yeah. With like I said, my some of the people that I cut out, especially when I first started with my journey and everything, I started to exclude myself from certain events, gatherings, and things like that. Not because I don't want to go. It was mainly because it was too early in my journey that I knew that I wasn't mentally ready to be surrounded by the things that actually got me to where I was at before I started my journey, right? And I didn't know if I had the strength to say no. And at that point, I had to make a decision and say, hey, go, fall off, and go back, or remove yourself from the equation, and life goes on, right? And that's what I did.
Yeah. And I think those are all phases in our life. I think sometimes we outgrow certain people. And I think it's okay. No, nothing against them, right? But we all have the desire to keep growing. And if you want to grow, you need to keep surrounding yourself by people that are going to push you and that are going to encourage you to do better. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned along the way. Ran into one of my high school friends the other day, and same thing. He just acted like he didn't see me. And this was a person that I spent a long time with. And some people take it offensive, and but it's at the end of the day, like, we need to keep growing, and we need to focus on the people that do want to be around us and that do want to see us succeed, and focus with those people, because when you're in a supportive group, and I think this is one thing that Envision does really well, is it makes everybody feel very supported, and it encourages people to push and keep pushing and keep pushing. And I think that's how you get success at scale, right? This is how you change communities. And this is how we plan to do it, right? Through conversation, through community, through experiences. And yeah, so anything else you have to say, Fernie?
No, I mean, that's it. Envision's just being a part of Envision, you know what I mean? Like, prior to joining Envision, I had told you I had never stepped a foot into a gym. Well, actually, I did, but I had to cancel my session that one time.
Oh, man.
But just being here, like I said, there's no judgment. There's support. Aside from the basics, as far as like, oh my God, sorry. Not only do they guide you through your journey, not only do you support on the physical aspect, but what I think is pretty cool is the knowledge part, which is what a lot of people in our community lack, right? That's where they lack, and that's something that Envision offers. That I'm telling you, a lot of the things that I've learned is because of you, and that's one of the reasons why when I fell off, I was like, well, I can just get back on there. Like, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, I messed up. Yes, I acknowledge it. Okay. Get what I said. I'm not going to cry my ass off because I gained 65 pounds. It's like, what am I going to do to get rid of them? Right? And just like you said, the community, like all the activities you do with the members outside of work. I mean, outside of, for your work, right? The events, the bonfires, all the friendships that are built within the gym. Mm-hmm. We're talking about people walking as strangers, but when they leave, they're walking out as friends or more, right? And just, the support of the coaches and everything. It's just, you guys you put the fun into wanting to have a healthier lifestyle and into wanting to be part of a gym, right? Because if you were to tell me right now, if I were to go to Gold's Gym, I wouldn't feel comfortable. No matter how much I've lost, no matter how good I look right now, I don't have the confidence to do that. And that is something that I'm challenging myself currently to turn that mindset around, because at that point I'm allowing other people's physique and other people like the way they look influence my self-esteem, right? But it's something that I'm learning in the process. But I mean, just being part of Envision, you there's none of that. It's like a family, right? And I mean, look at my cousins joined.
You have your entire family.
My sister-in-law joined. Her sister joined. There's other people that constantly ask me about it, right? Because they see. And even when we did the Wharf to Wharf, everybody was there, and we had such a great time doing it together. That was my first time actually doing it ever. And I'm ready to do it again, right? So you expose people to do and to, other things that they've never experienced before. And I feel like because of the connection and the friendship that they build within the gym makes those outdoor activities 1,000 times more fun. And that's why people are not like, all right, let's do the Spartan race. All right, let's do this, let's do that. No matter if you're able to climb the wall or not, the fact that you went out there and did it, props to you, right? And that's one thing that I appreciate about the gym. Like they never hold you back. There's no judgment. If anything, there's encouragement. Okay, you weren't able to build that wall, so that was good. We're going to work on the side, and next time we do the race, your ass is jumping that wall, right? So.
Well, thank you, Fernie. It's been a pleasure. Good luck with everything. I know you're going to do well. I'm pretty sure you're going to get that promotion as well. Are you moving back to town? Are you moving back to town?
Yeah.
Is it closer to town?
I'm hoping, yes.
Well, hopefully that works out, because that's gonna free up a lot of your time.
Yeah.
So, it's been a pleasure. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you once again.
Thank you.